This week we're going to be expanding on our fundamentals from last week and just adding a couple more techniques. So we're going to add dubbing a fly or putting dubbing onto our thread, creating a dubbing noodle. We're going to look very briefly at tying in hackle and wrapping hackle around the hook as we tie a little soft hackle, little CDC soft hackle fly. And then we're going to briefly talk about tie-in order, which materials you need to tie in first, and kind of the order that you wrap the materials based on how you've tied them in. So just like last week, this is gonna be one of those videos where we're gonna spend most of the time at the vise together tying. And luckily for you, you don't just have to sit here and stare at my ugly mug and listen to me talk the entire time. So let's head to the vise, let's grab a few materials and let's get tying. Alrighty, our first fly here today is gonna be a very simple hare's ear. More so like a hare's ear variation. And today, like I said, we're going to be focusing mostly on tie-in order. So what order we're actually going to tie in the materials. And then this first fly, we're really going to focus on dubbing and properly putting dubbing on the hook and then wrapping the dubbing around the hook shank. So I'm going to start my thread here. Again, holding it on the close side, wrapping away from me. Keeping my thread nice and tight as I work over that thread. Go ahead and get rid of my tag here. Now I'm going to turn this hook towards us. You can kind of see this gap here in the bead. And so with tying order, kind of the material that you wrap last is going to be the first material that you tie in. Now the tail doesn't get wrapped, however I do like to put the wire in before I tie on the tail. So I'm going to turn this back towards us a little bit. And so that little notch there, I'm actually going to stick the end of my copper wire in. So I'm going to kind of shove my copper wire in that notch there. And then I'm going to kind of start wrapping my thread down. And as I turn my hook back down, what you're going to see is you can't actually see my wire. And that's because I'm wrapping that wire on the side of the hook that's away from me. So I'm going to keep this wire nice and tight so you can't see it on the other side of the wire. On the other side of the hook, I mean. And I'm just going to wrap back right until to where there would be a barb, or right where this flat shank transitions to the bend of the hook right here. So that's my wire in. You can just kind of let that stay out of the way there for a little bit. Now for my tail, I'm going to use CDL. And so I'm going to come in here with my CDL fiber, with my CDL feather. And I'm going to come in here and just pull out like 5 or 6 fibers here. So I got kind of a clump of them here. A clump of them together here. It's probably too many, but it'll work for now. Just snip those away. And then I'm going to come in, I'm going to measure how long I want my tail. And I'm going to go ahead and switch hands here. And just like our pinch wrap, I'm working my fingers down along the hook shank. And I'm going to come in, pinch my thread, pull that down. And then you can see my tail is tied in right there. So rather than just cut this material the way it is right now, my bead isn't fully secured yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wrap this material down until I get all the way up to the bead here. And then I'm going to cut that guy just like so. So then I'll bring my thread back to where the barb would be and let it rest. And then I already have a clump of dubbing pulled from a hare's ear mask, or if you were to get this out of a package of dubbing, which you can see I just have a clump of dubbing fibers here. And so the key with dubbing is people use too much. So someone might take this whole clump and try to dub that or kind of make a noodle with that on the thread here. I'm just going to take a very small amount here. So I'm just going to take this little tuft here. I'm just going to set the rest aside here for a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dubbing and push it against the hook. And I'm going to come in with my thumb. I'm going to push my thumb up and roll my index finger back and just roll that dubbing on the hook until I create what's called a noodle. So if I hold this up, you can see my dubbing is twisted now around my thread. And I can go ahead and start making wraps forward. So I'll just lay a little bit down back at the back, and then I'll start slowly wrapping my thread forward. And I didn't use enough, which is fine. It's better to use too little and have to add more than just have this big globby mess. So I'll just come back in, grab a little bit more here, put that against the hook, twist that against my thread, make a couple more wraps till I'm right there behind the bead. So this dubbing is not nearly as fragile as the pheasant tail material, and actually as the fish's teeth get in here and kind of tease that dubbing out, it'll actually look buggier. But I say all that just because with the pheasant tail we had a counter wrap, so I had to wrap this towards myself. With this wire, I'm just going to wrap it the exact same way. So I'm going to create that segmentation that bugs have, wrapping this wire forward, leaving kind of even gaps as I go forward here, kind of going hand over hand until I got 3 wraps kind of on my abdomen, and then my wire is right behind my bead. So I'm going to make some securing wraps like that, pull my wire back, 1, 2 in front. So when we talked tools, I talked about having a pair of scissors for cutting wire. So you can just come in here with your scissors and go ahead and cut your wire nice and tight to the fly. Or there's a way to do it without scissors. You kind of notice I'm pulling on the wire and kind of pulling that hook up. So I'm adding tension to the wire. I'm just going to bring my other hand in to hold my vise down. But I'm going to start to circle this wire here as I pull up. And eventually that wire is going to break off nice and clean. And you can kind of see I have no kind of tuft sticking up. With the scissors, when you cut it with the scissors, sometimes you'll see a little piece of wire sticking up, which is not the end of the world, but this is a little bit cleaner, a little bit tighter to the hook. So then we're going to create like a 2-tone fly. So I'm going to come in here with this bronze peacock dubbing from Fulling Mill. And if you can see, I already just have a little bit sticking out the top here. And all I'm going to do is just go ahead and grab just a little bit there, and that's probably way too much. So I'm going to take some of that away. And then same thing, go ahead and stick that against the hook, against the thread here. Go ahead and make my dubbing noodle here. And this is just going to be our thorax. So if you kind of break the hook into thirds, kind of 2/3 of your fly is going to be the abdomen from here to here. And then this 1/3 up behind the bead is going to be your thorax. So just around the hook like that, put my finger next to it, you can see that kind of 2-tone there. Kind of a, not a light abdomen, but lighter than the thorax. And then I'm just going to go ahead and bring some glue and go ahead and glue my thread. 1, 2. Come in here with the old whip finish tool. 1, 2, 3. And we tie that guy off. And that right there is our hare's ear variation. Alright, same type deal here with our second fly. This fly is called a Duracell. Same type deal, except we're going to go one step further after we kind of dub the body. So start my thread there. I got a bigger bead on this guy, so I'm just going to put some extra wraps behind the bead here. And then this is more of an attractor style pattern, a little bit more of a flashier pattern than the last guy. So I'm going to come in here with my red wire, and just to show you here, right inside the bead, bring that guy down the side of the hook, rotate myself back here. Go ahead and measure these tail fibers out here. Switch hands. Give myself a little pinch wrap here. Now, if you were ever to get these fibers wrong or kind of too long, you could actually just take these here. You could kind of pull them until you get to the right size, as long as you only have a few reps of thread down. You don't want to pull too hard, because what will happen is you'll actually pull them all the way out, which is frustrating. But if you do go too long, you do have the option to kind of pull those shorter if you have a delicate hand, which I very often don't. Alright, beads locked in there, so we'll come back to the back here. And I got some like purple ice stub here. And I'm just going to pull a little bit out here. It's probably a little too sparse, but like I said, we can always add more later. Get that right next to the thread. Roll that between my fingers. Now, if you have kind of a too bulbous towards the back, because you want a fly that has a taper, so if you kind of get this and you kind of have it loose at the back, what you can do is twist it and pull it before you wrap it, just to kind of tighten that dubbing down a little bit more. And you know, as it comes forward, you want it to get a little bit fatter. So there's my body, and then with this dubbing too, if you have too much, you can always just kind of come through and just kind of pinch and pull those extra fibers. So now I'm going to wrap my red wire in here. Space those out nice and even. Spin this guy off. Alright, so for the other fly, we just added another little piece of dubbing and then we were done. For this guy, we're going to go one step forward, so we're going to create a little soft hackle collar. So this is a piece of CDC, Col de Canard. This is the medium grade done. So this is a pretty big feather for this fly. And so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it by the tip here. I'm just going to kind of pull these fibers back so they're kind of straight off the stem. And then I'm going to take one side of this and stay on that side of the stem, and I'm just going to cut those fibers away so that I don't overdress the fly here. So then you can kind of see this gap where I still have the feathers going forward and I have the ones that are pulled back. And I'm going to use that gap to tie in my feather here. So just like that. Put 4 or 5 wraps in. Now that that's secure, I'm going to take the tip of the feather here, which I didn't mention. I tied that in by the tip. That's technically the tip of the feather. Just like that. And now you can either take your hackle pliers if you want and kind of pinch it This is a pretty long feather, so I'm just going to do it with my hands here. So you want these feathers to lay back towards the tail, so I'm going to just kind of wrap it along the side. So I'm going to go once around, and then around again. I'm going to kind of tie it off with this stem on my close side here. So I'm going to do 3 wraps there. I'm going to come in very careful not to cut the fibers I wrapped and just clip the stem right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fingers and pull these fibers back. Pull those back towards the tail. Then I'm just going to kind of wrap over them a little bit, kind of coming back a little bit. And you'll see they kind of splay back. And that looks like a mess right now, but we'll clean that up here in a second. Come in with a little bit more dubbing here. Probably not enough. Some dubbing on the thread here, and I'm just going to make a collar over top of that black thread. So come in here with my glue. Now my fibers are way too long here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out of the vise, and I'm going to kind of push my fingers back until I have the tip of the tail covered. I'm going to pull these fibers down. You can see I have all these extra ones hanging out here. So I'm just going to press my nail, my thumbnail, into those fibers, and I'm going to tear them. Because my nail is rounded, it's going to typically tear those fibers so that they're also kind of rounded, or to kind of look a little bit more natural than if I were to cut it straight. And then even still, you can kind of come through and kind of clean up some of these fibers here and kind of splay them a little bit. Clean up some of my excess dubbing here. And you can see that those feathers go all the way around the hook nice and evenly. I have a nice kind of soft hackle collar there. But yeah, that right there, that is the Duracell. Thank you so much for watching the video, guys. If you did enjoy, go ahead and throw a like on the video. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you are not already. If you have any questions, comments on the material that we covered today or in any of the past videos, go ahead and leave me a comment down in the comment section. And again, if there's any flies or any specific techniques that you want to dive further into depth, the comments section is a great place to put those as well. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.